So 2 reports, one is an approval from council and one is just to be received by council. And these need to be submitted to the province, so I do need to do this today.
So
I promise to amend it.
I guess the question, so why do we have to report something that is a 2014 expense?
That's what Karen and I are
A 2012
That's
discussion.
Sorry, 20 what percent?
It's a 2012 expense,
Oh, I
not
see.
2011.
It's a 2012 expense.
You mean mayor's school?
No.
Expenses?
No, this particular thing that council.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, I see.
Why
what you're
is it,
saying.
yeah, why is it coming up?
Yeah. So what
Are
do
you
we,
dealing with the other
It says,
one?
at least once a year, a council must have prepared a report listing the following: the total amount of expense payment made during the year. Like, it doesn't say,
Well, it's a prepaid, it's not an expense. It's a deposit.
okay,
It's an asset.
but next year I won't remember to pick it up because the way the system produces it, it grabs cash
That's
payments.
right, it's
in.
not an expense, it's a deposit.
Okay.
So it's a prepaid
I'll take it off.
expense for
I know.
2012.
But we'll all remember the time.
So, if I amend it to take up to $400 and $600, do we have an emotion to accept it, approve it, and a motion to receive the second report, please?
so have you, I don't want to pick on anybody here, but Councillor Frenton, as he then was, his expenses are $1,900, almost $2,000.
That would probably be for metro-related travel.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And translate, mayor's council travel, and students flight air quality travel, and attending UBCM and attending local government, the Lower Mainland local government conference at this one.
He was the most traveled councillor in that council.
And also all the committees. He was on several committees with Metro too.
Okay.
And that's a whole policy discussion as to whether, since everybody who attends any Metro meetings gets paid by Metro, whether we should be paying for those expenses or not.
We have a stress
Yeah, that's another policy discussion we never really had.
Like whether we're paying enough to the persons who are
No,
attending?
whether, because the person that goes to mayor's council and goes to Metro Vancouver gets a stipend from that organization for doing that, should we as the municipality be paying for their expenses to get there?
No, that's why isn't it paid for by Metro or whoever.
Well, Metro would be the people to pay for it, there's no question. I don't know that, do we put in expense? I mean, not to the municipality, but do we put in
No.
expenses to
Metro
Metro?
won't accept expenses for travel
Really?
because it's travel within the regional district.
And
And one
they
third
give
of
you a
it,
free bus pass?
and 1/3 of your stipend is considered tax-free in order to pay for your expenses.
We have since incorporation paid for our Metro reps for travel, for very costly travel.
Anyhow, it's just a policy discussion.
Okay.
we never really had.
So what do we, is there, do we,
Are you wanting both of them approved, Karen? or just
One approved, one received.
Okay, and you're gonna make the appropriate change for expenses to both.
Yes.
And did you want to explain to anybody why the benefits were so all over the map?
I also received a early this morning question. You should know I didn't just spring this on them. I did send it out May 2nd and say, give me your feedback. And I did receive some questions, and I don't pull every invoice and examine it to see whether or not it's interpreting, if I'm interpreting it and the software is interpreting it correctly. I just kind of try and use my common sense and then ask the managers for help to review theirs. Because it picks up even, one of our managers uses his pickup truck in the course of his duties to drive around for work. And so he has a fair high reimbursement. So it picks up that, and I need to look at that and say, does that make sense? For me, it picked up one of my employees attended a payroll course, and it said my name beside it, and I thought, gee, I don't remember taking the payroll course. So you do need to have some interpretation on it, but it's very time consuming to pull every invoice and examine it. So I just took it, sent it out on May 2nd, and received a few questions. So some of the benefits are higher because some councillors, we pay Canada Pension Plan on behalf of them, and some of them are more mature and don't have Canada Pension Plan payments, so that's the difference on there. The benefits also are different for couple, family, and single.
That's
rates.
very political of you.
So that's the difference in the benefits for council. Any other questions?
So we
So-
gotta do this.
Can we do a motion here? Allison, you wanna do a motion on the-
So I move that council approve the statement of financial information for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2011 as amended. And that council receive a report of council remuneration expenses and contracts for the fiscal year ended December 31, 2011 as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? Question? All those in favor? Thank you.
Next up, we have two delegations. The first is Mr. John Greene, on behalf of Snug Cove House.
Good afternoon, Mayor. I'm councillor, staff, fellow Bowen Islanders. I'm here today on behalf of Snug Cove House, formerly Abbeyfield. I'm sure you're all aware of the project. It's been on the go longer than some of us have been on the island. Councillor Jennings was probably a youngster or teenager when the idea was first conceived. Wouldn't it be an embarrassment to all of us if by the time the project comes to completion, he was eligible for residency?
Maybe.
A major stumbling block to moving the project forward has been and continues to be the sewer and water issues surrounding the site. Over the intervening years, a lot of lip service has been directed at these issues, but sadly, to date, very little has been implemented. I'm led to believe Council are in the throes of forming an infrastructure committee. If this becomes a reality, we at Snug Cove House are prepared to work in close harmony with this committee in regards to infrastructure issues in areas of close proximity to our site. Hopefully this would negate duplication of time and brainstorming efforts. If the committee does not become a reality, in an effort to move beyond our infrastructure stumbling block, we at Snug Cove House are proposing that Council authorise us to work with staff and one or two other knowledgeable islanders to analyse the water and sewer issues along the Miller and Government Road corridors. Then come back to Council with a set of costed conclusions on which Council can make an informed decision. I acknowledge the complexity of the workload that Council have undertaken this term and applaud you, one and all, for having stepped forward and the commitment to do so. But given that time seems to evaporate and Darren is getting older, we hope that this Council will expedite a plan of action that will bring the Snug Cove House infrastructure saga to an acceptable conclusion. Thank you for your time and attention.
John, if I may ask, do you have some names that you can give us
Yeah,
besides yourself?
yeah, I have a couple of individuals that are probably interested. I'll give you the names elsewhere. I don't want to.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but as long as we,
Yeah.
because I think it's a good idea. The other question I have for you is that there's been rumors circulating that there's a lot on, was it Dorman Road, across from the the bakery.
Essentially across from the intersection of Dorman and Village Drive.
That might become available as a place for.
I mean, there are, as you can imagine, in the time this is taken, there's been lots of ideas floated. We have one or two ideas bouncing around there, but nothing that we can grasp at the moment. But to that end, we would like to, as I say, at least move the infrastructure problem forward, deal with it and have it finished.
But if Abbey Field was to find a lot on that, in that area, then that infrastructure problem would be gone, wouldn't it?
It would in a fashion, but again, we're back on an if, and rather than, as I say, hang around in an if for another 10 years, I mean, the infrastructure that we're speaking about along the road will also service a whole slew of other properties. The community I believe the community centre, the land between the community centre and Bowen Court, residences along Miller, Snug Cove House, Lot 2, as I call it, the one inside the police station, and then James Tours, Village Concepts. These are all issues that are in and around the crossroads there that should be dealt with.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to ask any questions of John?
John's idea, like, there are all sorts of things swirling around about a possible future site for Abbey Field that's different than the present location. But Mr. Greene does bring up an interesting point that even aside from Snug Cove House going on that piece of property, that somehow figuring out a way to finance that piece of pipe that has to go into the ground would be a seriously good move. And it really is a gating thing on developing a lot of that land, which is, you know,
We're
good.
moving forward in that.
Yeah, definitely, but you know, just in terms of you know, when we're looking at necessary conditions to move forward, that's certainly close to the top of the pile. If we're going to dispense of any of the surplus lands on Lot 3 and service them and so on.
Just a little bit of history again. When Abbey Field purchased that piece of property a number of years ago, and one of the thoughts in doing it was having Abbey Field in that location was the synergies of having Abbey Field near Bowen Court and some of the Abbey Field meals programs and things like that being able to be utilized by the people at Bowen Court. And then several years later, both Bowen Court and Abbey Field realized they needed money to do their development, and we went through a rezoning process. So there are lots along Miller Road that those entities would be able to sell, which would provide them with some of their much needed capital. So that's just some history that needs to be considered, and if there's another lot available, where does that much needed capital come from without having the sewer hookup down at Abbey Field and being able to service those lots?
Okay, well, we'll come to that. Derek?
Some time ago, Councillor Morse mentioned that there was a bylaw that had received, I think, first reading for parcel 3.
That's it.
I'm wondering if it's worth revisiting that bylaw number 1 to look at parcel 3. Is there a way that we could fold in the discussion and the technicalities to incorporate not only parcel 3 but Miller Road and Snug Cove House sites? I don't know if that's a plausible agenda item in the short term.
Just one more thing before you answer, because I just want to bring up a tiny piece of history which stopped the whole sewer thing in its tracks last fall, and that was the latecomer agreement. And I know there's an answer for that, but I just want to bring that to the table, that the reason why council didn't approve going forward with that pipe last term was the lack of the latecomer agreement.
Well, the lack of where the money was going to
Was
come
the lack
from
of
to
money.
pay for it.
Lack of money in
The
there.
decision to not go forward at council was, the reason why it stopped in its tracks was Councillor Poole at the time said there's no latecomer agreement. There was a vote to the table brought, and it stopped in its tracks.
I just think it's important to note, because John's brought up a very important point. We have to do something before Darren becomes of age. I mean, I think this is very important.
As long as it doesn't on top.
Okay, anything further there on?
Just
this topic?
regarding Councillor Jennings' question, Councillor Morris has been bugging me to circulate that report of bylaw for Council's consideration, or has been asking me, sorry. What I'll do is I'll circulate that by email. It was a report done by Michael Rosen, and I think the bylaw had been given first reading. And maybe we can just circulate that by email, get initial comments, and see where we want to go from there. But it is a great basis to start with, for sure.
Thanks for bringing it up.
That
Plus
should
the
be,
report
that should be
from
part of
her-
our June 22nd,
Yeah.
Talk.
reforms of June
Yeah,
22nd.
and we wanted to talk to you about a penny carry with Gather for that, so, yeah.